Hi knitters, welcome to episode 99 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I forgot my coffee, can't have that. Hi knitters, welcome to episode 99 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I am Devin Ventry. You can find me on the internet at knittymcpurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly on Instagram. And if you would like to get in touch with me, you can email me at devin@knittymcpurly.com. Thank you for joining me. I am full of joy this morning, this beautiful, glorious Sunday morning. As you can see, I have mixed up my background once again. We're in my bedroom, in case you were wondering. The plant has come with me. But I was thinking, it doesn't make sense for me to have the window in the background when the window is my main source of light. Also, these lights that I just remembered about. Let me turn these puppies on. So much to cut out, and I just started. Oh, yeah. That's better. All right. I am almost to episode 100. Fun thing that we're going to do this time. Leave me a comment below, and I will be choosing for 3 different giveaways that I have not fully decided on what they are, but I will be giving away 3 fun giveaways next episode because it is my 100th episode. And I will be choosing from the comments on this episode. So leave a comment, say whatever you want to, and you will enter yourself to win one of the giveaways for episode 100, which will air next Sunday. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be so much fun. Anyway, I got a lot of great feedback on my new background from last episode. Tell me what you think of this. So we used to have all of these things up behind our bed. And then when we painted a couple months ago, we took it all down. And my husband and I were thinking about doing like a wood wall back there. I don't know. Do you know on that movie Up where they have their like Paradise Falls fund and they have to keep breaking the jar because stuff comes up? Well, that's probably your life is the same way. My life is that way. We have these, grand projects that we want to do, but there's always something that comes up. So someday maybe it will turn into a wood wall. Maybe when my husband sees how boring this wall looks, he'll be like, we need to do that wood wall. Anyway, welcome to episode 99. I got so many great comments last week. I loved reading them. What I do, I kind of have this Sunday tradition where after I film the podcast and I've edited it and I'm uploading it to YouTube, which takes forever, I go through, and I've already gone through and read them, but I go through and I respond to the comments from last week. I'm very much looking forward to doing that. I got so many great comments last week. So many of you said, there's a lot of knitting podcasts out there, but this one is different. And I was like, that's so nice. I love that it's different. I love that you love it. Ironically, I pretty much stole my format from Alana Dacos's Never Not Knitting show from back in the day. Not 10 years ago, but 6 to 8 years ago. That was kind of a groundbreaking podcast, and podcasts have gone in so many directions since then. But I loved her knitting fantasy segment. That was hers originally. I love that she included a knitting story at the end of every podcast, which I have rolled into mine as the So Here's What Happened segment of the podcast. So while it's maybe unique and different, it's mostly stolen. But openly so. I mean, it was a great thing. That podcast isn't around anymore. So I'm glad to hear that you like that format, and I'm glad you're here. Thank you for joining me. Progress in shop news. I have been busy getting ready to ship out the advent calendars. They are right on deck. If you pre-ordered an advent calendar, you will be getting a notification probably the end of this week that those are going to ship. If you have not pre-ordered an advent calendar, there are a couple left. You can go and snag one on my website. This is a DK weight advent calendar. You get a 10-gram mini for every single day of Advent. The theme is bright, Christmassy colors, solids, We're making 3 different giftable accessories that are very, very simple. I love during Advent to have a very simple project, or in this case, host of projects, because Advent is a crazy time of year and we don't have time to be fussing with lace charts during Advent. Just no. So those are right on deck. The pre-orders are still up. They will ship out at the end of the week, and you'll have yours ready to go for Advent. I think it came out really good. I love how it turned out. I love the projects. I've been wearing mine around because people in my regular life don't knit. So that's been really fun. Also this week, I have started dyeing and designing my Lent calendar for Lent of 2023. This is going to be my second year doing this, and I think this is just going to have to be a yearly tradition because it is so beloved. Like, people love the Lent calendar. Who knew? Who knew? But Lent kind of stinks, and it's a crummy time of year. It's a sacrificial time of year. It's hard. And so to have something knitty to look forward to during that time is really nice. And knitting is very meditative. The Lent calendar is very different from Advent. This is a fingering weight, 40 skeins of 10 grams each. This is a much more muted palette of colors. It's a much more meditative knit. The mystery knit along that goes along with this one is still simple, but more complex than Advent. It's going to have parts where you have to kind of, think and pay attention. Last year's Lent shawl is one of my all-time favorite shawls ever. So I've set the bar high. I'm hoping that this year it will be just as good, if not better. That's my goal. But that has been so much fun. I mentioned either last week or a couple weeks ago that I kind of lost my knitting mojo. I was feeling a little bit bummed about it. And this project, partly because of the way I decided to do it, has really got me set on fire for knitting again. I'm doing a much more manageable number. I did a lot of Advent calendars this year because I thought, let's just throw it at the wall and see what sticks. Like, maybe this is a good number. I overshot it a little bit, which is fine. I learned a lot from doing it. I don't have a setup for dyeing that quantity and then prepping that quantity. Like, I'm just not set up for that. There are big operations out there, like Nicole over at Hugh Loco has a really big operation. She has employees and like a warehouse, and that's just not what I do here. And I think both things are good. It's just, how do you want to live your life? It's funny, my brother-in-law is an entrepreneur, and he's a very successful entrepreneur. And so he's like, we got to get your business up into the millions. And I'm like, I don't really want that. Like my business is as big as I want it to be. It's doing what I want it to do. Thanks to you guys. You guys are so great. Thank you so much for buying my yarn, for purchasing my calendars, for getting my stitch marker necklaces and my accessories. It's because of you guys that I get to do this amazing job and do it at the scale that I want to do it. Anyway, all that to say, dyeing as many as I did for Advent this year is not sustainable for me long term. So I learned that. I'm dyeing a smaller number for Lent. And I may have undershot it again. We're kind of I'm trying to figure out what's a good number to make. But this has been a really great amount. I can just knock them out, and it is so fun. The momentum is going, and it's just been really, really fun. I have loved it so far. I'm just at the beginning. But anyway, if you're interested in one of those, they will go on sale January 1st. So you have plenty of time. And they will be my usual $125. So it's a bargain. It's a good deal. Because even though it is 16 extra mini skeins, I charge the same as I do for Advent. So I'm going to do that as long as I can. That said, my shipping is going to have to go up because USPS lost another one of my packages. You guys, it is like a little tiny piece of me dies every time the Postal Service loses a package. UPS has never lost a package of mine, never ever. I usually use one of those two services, but I'm at the point where I feel like I need to go all UPS because it's just so heartbreaking when a package of mine gets lost. Anyway, how did I get off on that? I don't even know. Another thing, I finished my sweater. You might notice that I am wearing it. Let's see if I can get behind this chair a little bit. Oh yeah, there you go. So this is how long the sleeves ended up being. Are they even the same length? I think this one's a little bit longer. I'll just give it a tug. Now they look the same. Whatever. So if you'll remember, I still had people asking me last week, like, give me a link to the pattern for this sweater. This does not have a pattern. I basically cast on however many stitches. Probably I used a number that I've used before in a fingering weight, and I just started doing raglan shaping. And this is something you can totally do. If you have a neckline that you like, go ahead and cast it on. And if you're working from the top down, you can just keep trying that thing on and seeing if it's like the way you like it. And then when you get under the sleeves, now for this one, I did some, what did I do here? I think I just did a bunch of knit front and backs right here to make this kind of puff. And then when I did the sleeves, I did not do any decreases. And then at the bottom, I did a knit two together all the way around, and I went down a needle size to make this draw in here. Oh, and I'm wearing my Odette stitch marker necklace. The reason this one belongs to me is because it is broken. Oops, oh, it's this way. It does not stay closed, and so that's why it's mine. But you can see that it can hold a lot of stitch markers. So a lot of times I'm walking around like this because it doesn't stay closed, but I should just glue it because it's just so pretty. This is for sale in my shop. It comes filled with stitch markers, so you can always have one of those available if you want. But here we have the other sleeve. Looks the same as the other one. Now this I knitted just straight down, and it grew a slight bit when I blocked it, and I've kind of got it tucked in the front here because I like that. But this is a beautiful single ply yarn from Kim Dyes Yarn. She's a dyer who is local to me. I've worked with her in the past, and it's just a beautiful color. I think it's really pretty. I love the hand-dyed nature of it, and so you get cool things like this that make it interesting. You know, you're not going to find a sweater from a store that has these interesting places. It's like anything, you know, like handmade leather goods or a handmade pottery mug. It's different and it's unique, and it has these cool things that show that it's handmade. Because who wants a sweater that looks just like you know, got it out of a store? You can go buy a sweater like that, and it'll probably be machine washable and have no mistakes. So I think hand dyes are just great. And if you are in the market for a sweater quantity of yarn, you can go over to my website and pick that up. I still have my yarn listed so that it looks like I only have one color. I need to go through and change it, but it's a big job. And every time I look at it, I'm kind of like, oh. I'm your traditional kind of ENFP sanguine personality who's like, oh, I have to do this boring thing. But when I do it, it's gonna look really nice, and you'll be able to see all the colors that I have available. Right now there are 6. I will be adding 6 more as the year comes to a close. I have a couple that I'm definitely sure on, and I had some that I thought I was sure on, but now I'm rethinking, so that's kind of been slowing me down a little bit on that. But gosh, it's so much fun. Dyeing yarn it's art you can wear. I love that. And can I just comment on the fact that I love the blousey sleeves on this? I love that I can go like this and you can't see my arm jiggle. Oh, love that. Anyway, life is good. Moving on to our topic of the week. This week we're going to be talking about Estonian knitting. Last week I focused on the Latvian braid, and we talked about the Baltic states of Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, and just kind of showing on the map where these are together. I don't know the history of this part of the world. My guess, I'm pretty sure these were all former Soviet USSR parts. And, you know, over time, they have changed hands a lot. So probably a lot of the people who live in these areas are somewhat interchangeable. They're probably one people in a sense. I don't know the details of that. I wish that I did. In my search for the history of Estonian knitting, I found there are a lot of books on this topic. In fact, I'm going to put up a screenshot from a video that I'm going to be talking about today. But she mentions a book whose title is on the screenshot that goes into the history of Estonian knitting. I don't own any of these books. My library didn't have them. I would need to go out and buy them. But I might, or at least some of them, because they just look so interesting. I came across techniques today that I had never seen before. It's so cool to have that. So as I was searching for Estonian knits, I came across lots of different things. The thing I came across first was the Estonian braid. And I went ahead and did a very short little tutorial video that I'm going to put in right here. Hi knitters, you might remember from last time we did the Latvian braid. This is the one that I was working on the last time when I got it so terribly twisted. Well, I went ahead and I did some 2-color, 1x1 color work here. And then I did another Latvian braid. And this one, I think you can see really clearly the twist, the purl bump, the twist, and the purl bump. But anyway, go back and check out last week's episode if you would like to see how I did that. Now this week, that's the Latvian braid. This week, I wanted to show you the Estonian braid. And, you know, ideally, I would show you this from start to finish. My idea was to go ahead and work one here and do a little more and then show you it from start to finish. But because it is Sunday and my family would like a piece of me today too, I am just going to go ahead and show you this one. There are lots of great tutorials on YouTube that show how to work this technique, but I'm just going to show it to you really quickly right now. Now, I've already done the setup. There is, right at the very beginning, there is one setup stitch that you do to get going. And you can see that I went right from knitting in the pink and I switched to this other color. This is Morel, I think. But this is like a, you know, a taupey, beigeish, tannish, purplish, beautiful, amazing color. And you can see that even just going from the pink to the next color, it looks really cool. You end up kind of with that little bit of pink showing through the middle. But this is essentially what an Estonian braid looks like. It looks like a row of knitting that is worked horizontally. So it's really cool. Now, I'm not going to show you that setup stitch, but like I said, I'll link a great tutorial below if you want to see a detailed direction on how to do this. I kind of like what I've got going on here. This is kind of neat, isn't it? This has been really fun to make this. So when you are into it on the Estonian braid, this is basically the repeat. You're going to, and it's kind of nice here that I am switching colors because it helps you to see what has already been worked and what is, you know, fresh from the last row. We're going to skip this stitch right here and go right to the second stitch, and we're going to knit it through the back loop. Now, when you pull that through, we're not going to drop it off. We're going to leave it on the right-hand needle. Then I'm going to knit as usual into that next stitch. And then I'm going to drop all of that off. So including that one right there that was in the pink. Now, what I have here almost kind of looks like a knit front and back, sort of, kind of looks like that. I'm going to slip it back over to the left-hand needle, and then I just do that repeat where I skip the first stitch, go in through the back loop on the second stitch, don't drop it off, and then I'm going to knit as usual into the next stitch, and drop everything off. And then you slip it back. And this is just really fun because once you get into the rhythm, you're just working it, and it's very meditative and easy. It's a really cool looking technique that's easy to do, and it only takes one round, unlike the Estonian braid, which takes two. And if you remember from last week, I became hopelessly twisted. Now, somebody, a lovely podcast watcher, last week recommended to me that I use bobbins. And I thought that was a really good suggestion for people who get hopelessly twisted. You know, the tutorial that I linked last time, in that one, the woman was very, don't worry. You're twisting one way, but next time you'll twist back the other way. Well, it didn't work out for me quite like it did for her. But, if you're somebody more like me, I guess, then you might want to use bobbins. But that's how this has worked. If you want more details, like I said, I'll link to another tutorial by another wonderful knitting YouTuber where you can get the details on how to work this Estonian braid. Last week, I had someone comment to me that the Fruity Knitting podcast, episode 124, in that episode, Andrea interviews Alex Bird. And this designer's name is ALEKS-BYRD. So neither Alex nor Bird is spelled in the usual way, in case you wanted to look it up. But it's episode 124 of the Fruity Knitting podcast. I have not seen it myself, but I've seen Fruity Knitting before, and she just does an amazing, amazing job. So Alex Bird is an expert. She's an Estonian and an expert on Estonian knitting. She has books on Estonian knitting, and I kind of went down that rabbit hole a little bit of her patterns. One of her books, which I'm going to put up right here, again, I can't remember the names of them, but I have a picture. She uses a technique called Estonian inlay knitting. Now, before I go into that, I just want to read this little blurb from Alex's website, and you can go look at her website. It's alex-bird.com, and on her website, she has links to her books and her patterns and her shop and tutorials and teaching and all sorts of stuff. It's a really cool website. But here's what she says about this particular book. For a small country on the Baltic Sea, Estonia's tradition and love for handicraft greatly surpasses its size. Estonian knitting is all about techniques, embellishment, and regionality. Gosh, that's so interesting. Each knit tells a story about the knitter and where they live. Oh, Alex Bird's book, Traditions Revisited, that's what it's called, Modern Estonian Knits, is an introduction to Estonian knitting, both traditional and traditional inspired. It includes 19 patterns ranging from mittens to sweaters that blend seamlessly with modern knitting styles. So I'm going to be putting up, as I'm talking here, some pictures, which I'm pretty sure these pictures are the knits in the book. When I looked on her website, it wasn't completely clear that that's the case, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it is. These are the designs from the book. Alex Bird, whose roots are in Estonia, Canada, and the US, is a knitwear designer based in Bath, UK. In addition to knitwear design, she works as an illustrator and teaches Estonian knitting techniques around the world. In her designs, tradition and Alex's own graphic style meet. Okay, first of all, I want to meet Alex and be her best friend. Second of all, I just want to be her. That sounds amazing. Oh my gosh. Now I want to go watch that Fruity Knitting episode because that sounds so good. As I was looking at these patterns, I noticed the techniques that look like something I hadn't seen before. It looks like embroidery on the knitting. And so my first thought was that it looks like it's not duplicate stitch. Duplicate stitch is where you essentially, with a yarn needle and yarn, just go right over the stitch, and it gives you a look of something like color work without doing color work. So that's kind of a cool technique too, but this is different because these more seem like floats on the right side of the work. This is a technique called Roosimine, spelled Roosimine, but pronounced, that I learned from one of Alex's videos, Roosimine. And what it means is to decorate with roses, because it's as if you are embellishing these knits with flowers or embroidery to make them look special. So I found a video by Summer Lee, who is a wonderful knitwear designer. She designs socks and she has a great aesthetic. Her designs are great. Her presentation of her designs are great. And I don't know anything about these knitters personally. Because I kind of like that about knitting, that we can talk about knitting without knowing each other's personal, religious, political, and other views. Like, we don't need to know that about each other. We can just be friends anyway. So I've not looked into the details of these people, but from what I can see of their work, it's amazing. I'm going to be linking a video below of Summer showing how to do this Roosimine technique. And there are also videos of Alex Bird showing this also on YouTube if you're interested in this. It is so easy and it looks so much fun. It looks like so much fun. So if you're interested in learning that, I definitely recommend that you check out that video by Summer Lee. It's really, really good. All right, knitting fantasies. Another thing that I found a lot of when I was searching on Estonian knits is Estonian lace. So on Etsy, I found a bunch of patterns that show Estonian lace. This first one is a shawl by Wearable Art Emporium called Mountain Climbers. And it's very lacy, very delicate. It's the kind of thing you would make for a wedding or a baptism, or if you wanted to do it in a darker color or a different neutral, it could be worn as like a cover-up at a formal event. It's a very fancy shawl. And a lot of these are like that. They're all white, which I think is interesting because I guess they're all very lacy and just, they seem like they should be white or black, I feel like. Black would be good too. The second pattern that I picked is from Brooklyn Tweed. It is a shawl by Nancy Bush called Spruce Forest. And this is just really, really pretty. I'm pretty sure she used Brooklyn Tweed Loft to make this, which is a fingering weight woolen spun yarn by Brooklyn Tweed that is really beautiful. In the product description for this shawl, it says, this triangular shawl is constructed using a combination of traditional and modern Estonian construction methods. So it's not just the stitches, but the construction method that's also Estonian. Gosh, I gotta get these books and I gotta talk more about this. Next week, we'll see. Maybe, if I can make it happen, we'll do Estonian Knits Part 2. And is adorned with an Estonian cube and spruce all over motif. So the stitches also are an Estonian motif. Worked in a pale shade of gray, it reminds us of snowy woods during winter. Nup clusters add subtle texture to the central triangle, and lacy border makes this a pretty accessory that will keep your neck warm during the cold weather. Super, super cute, Nancy. Great job. My third pick is a shawl on Etsy by a shop called Estonian Lace. This shawl is called the Secret Garden Shawl, and it is just so pretty and lacy and delicate. It's the kind of a labor of love shawl. Like, it's when your granddaughter is getting married and she said, Grandma, please, please make me a lace shawl. And you said, okay, because you're just that great of a grandma. So it's beautiful, it's lovely. And I found another baby blanket by this same shop, by Estonian Lace, called the Little Prince Baby Blanket. It appears that this Estonian lace blanket was knitted for a little baby boy and therefore called the Little Prince. But these are beautiful, gorgeous knits. It seems to me like the Estonians are just really hardcore on their knitting. Like, they've got color work, they've got texture, as you saw in the pictures by Alex Bird, that there's not any lace that I saw in that book, The Traditions Revisited. I didn't see any lace. I saw mostly texture and the Roosimine technique, but there's also lace. Like, they just do a lot of knitting over in Estonia. I really need to go visit. I need to go to Europe and live there for like 10 years and learn all the things. Do you think Isabel Kramer would let me like sleep in her basement? How fun would that be? Oh my gosh. Okay, moving right along. So here's what happened. Today's story, in our, trekking the globe theme that we seem to have going on today, today's story comes to us from New Zealand. This is from one of my test knitters named Solange, which I think is a gorgeous name. Love the name Solange. And she has a story to tell about a knitting group in New Zealand. Here it is. She says, I have a story about our little knitting community here in New Zealand. I belong to a small knitting group on Facebook called the Speakeasy Group, hosted by the mill where I buy most of my yarn, called Skeins with a Z in Napier City. Anyway, we all chat, share pattern ideas and acquisitions on the group page. One day, a friend of mine named Lady A, we're going to call her Lady A for the sake of the story, posted a bag that I had gifted her on the page. Immediately, I got a message from another lady, we'll call her Lady B, asking where I had gotten that fabric. You see, I repurpose fabric and tablecloths from op shops or thrift shops. I guess in New Zealand they call them op shops. So she gets these cool old vintage items from thrift shops, and then she repurposes the fabric into new things such as bags. She says, Solange says, I told her which town I had bought the tablecloth from. I was a bit reluctant to cut it at first because it was so beautiful, but I relented because that is what I do. Well, Lady B tells her that her cousin lived in that town and had received a special tablecloth from her mother. We realized that that was it. Well, I almost died knowing I had cut it up over 2 years ago, over the last 2 years. So it took her that long to use it up. She told me that that tablecloth was hand embroidered by her mother in Zambia and then brought to New Zealand in 1948 when they immigrated. At first, I felt a little guilty, and then I felt bad for her knowing that her cousin donated it to a thrift shop. It was a family heirloom. So the first lady, Lady A, who posted her picture of the bag, felt terrible, and she wondered whether she should give her bag to Lady B. In the end, Solange says, I found just enough to make 2 more little pouches, and I sent them to Lady B because she said that her sister also knitted. But what a crazy coincidence. Isn't that hilarious? I was so happy to be able to give her a piece of her mother's work. She sent me some lovely yarn as a gift in return, and ultimately my friend Lady A got to keep her bag too. More recently, I posted a picture of a bag with repurposed curtains with retro flowers on them. And another lady mentioned to me that her daughter had the same curtains as a child, and she's now 48. Wow, those things really lasted. How beautiful that I get to hear all of these nostalgic stories through my work. P.S. I've attached pictures of what the tablecloth became before the project bags, and then the bags as well. It's the bright pink with the flowers. So pretty. I used to sell baby and children's garments from repurposed fabric. Anyway, what a close and friendly knitting and crafting community we have, and not just in New Zealand, the world over, really. That is awesome. I feel like as knitters, we are all connected. We're all together because we are united in this craft that we love so much, and we're able to connect because of YouTube. Like the people in my regular life are not knitters. Like my regular, normal friends, they're just regular people, muggles. They don't even knit. So I'm so glad I have you guys, because who would I talk to about knitting? And I get to talk to Solange from New Zealand about knitting. I mean, it's just so amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining me. Before you turn this video off and go watch one of those other ones that I linked below that are going to be super awesome, leave me a comment because I will be choosing from the comments below for next week's giveaway, and I'll be announcing those throughout the episode. Next week's episode is going to be really fun. It's episode 100. Woo woo! So I hope you'll join me next week. I hope you have a wonderful week, get a lot of knitting done, and learn something new. All right. Love you guys. Bye.